Yeah, what happens, I've sort of always been that way, but I've wanted to be and tried to be much more mindful of it, particularly in the last few years, because it's, has sort of negative effects on me, and I'm not very helpful when that happens.
It's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah, and it's a recipe for burnout, and I have worked as a social worker before, and I would always get burned out.
Yeah.
Almost on by the clock. Within 2 years, I'd hit burnout. And so that was a piece of it too, is that I didn't want to be burned out. And also I realized I'm just not as effective. And where it is now is that I try and be mindful, but I notice that I kind of check out, and when someone's really upset and sitting across from me, I think that I'm like staying back and giving them their space, but then maybe 15 minutes goes by or a half hour, and I realize I'm still sitting back, but I'm in their space, and I've kind of lost my own seat, so to speak. Right. And so there's almost like I kind of check out and don't, even though my intention is not to, something about how activated they are, right. I almost feel like this urgency to, even though I know intellectually that it doesn't help to fix anything, but something happens within me where I feel this urgency about fixing.
Very congruent.
Yeah, there's almost like this huge, fast magnet that I don't even know what happens, and it obviously doesn't come from my head.
How would you like to get demagnetized?
Demagnetize it, please. I think the window idea is really helpful, and as you're saying that, I'm getting that part of what happens without the bubble is that I can physically feel what's going on for them in my body, and that helps me to get it, like where they are. So the bubble, I'm just trying to get a sense of how I'll have the same understanding without it taking so much in my body. Mm-hmm. So the window might work. Might work.
I have some suggestions about this. The reason you went into social work and the kind of work therapy that you did is because you have this sensitivity to other people.
Probably.
It's a typical thing.
Yeah.
Typical thing. And it's a very useful thing. It's a skill, but like any other skill, it also has drawbacks.
Yeah.
And then you hold in. Now imagine being with this client, and you have the bubble around you, so you're protected. You can feel the nice, I don't know quite what the word, the separation. And then at any time that you want to get what's going on with them, you can let the bubble fade away. Either open up a window or let it kind of fade away between you, so that you can have that sensitivity to what's going on with them. And then once you get that information, then the window can close, or the bubble can come back, and that you could do this, 20 times a second or 3 times an hour, depending on your need for information and the goals that the client has and so on. Just try that out a little more. You're nodding. So.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is sort of the bubble, and then almost like a dial.
Right.
And I'm kind of turn the dial, and it almost like whatever, the force field or whatever, kind of just, and then I can receive, and then I turn it back on, like immediately.
Great.
Yeah, and that feels good, because then I've got it, I can kind of work with it, but I'm working with it within the bubble.
Great.
And there's not more coming in. I think that I'm kind of getting that's part of what gets overwhelming, is it just keeps coming in, the information.
Yeah. And something else that you may realize already, but I just want to mention, is that to the extent that you get over-involved with a client, you actually lose touch with other information and what you could do and things like that.
Yeah.
You probably know this already.
Yeah, I lose kind of the whole kind of receipt of kind of my intuition and guidance. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, all of it. Sometimes even common sense, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I want you to go back to that client again and practice some more with the dial. Have that dial with your right hand. I don't know if you need to move your right hand as you did when you gestured, but
I can try and see.
A little control thing. And if you do it here with your hand actually there, you don't have to do it with the actual client, but everybody can have a sense of just turning that dial down.
Actually, yeah, I didn't have to have it down very long, so that was, I really kind of flooded in pretty quick.
Okay.
And then I just turned it back.
Well, and that's something you can calibrate to, that as you're with actual clients, you can tune in, you know, oh, how much do I need? And some people get it very, very quickly. I mean, it can be a matter of a second or two, and dial it down again.
Yeah.
Now, go back to the client again. I want you to do something else. It may seem a little weird. Do it with your left hand, the same dial.
Okay.
You can move the dial, so but the dial doesn't have to stay in the same place in space.
And it is awkward on this. It's funny because it feels awkward, but.
So we'd like you to be able to do it with both. And maybe that would be a good way to start. To put both hands up and dial with both. Dial with the right, which feels more natural. And simultaneously dial with your left.
Yeah, it's interesting because it actually feels like a whole different channel of information from the client over here, like almost two different movie screens. And this one is less comfortable, but I kind of get that there's a whole bit of information that I'm not getting by just doing the right. So, yeah, I'm just find that intriguing. I'm kind of curious about it.
Okay, Gina, thanks very much for coming back. It's been a couple of months since we had our session together, and I'm interested to hear your report.
Yeah, things are going quite well. I've utilized some of the strategies that we talked about, and
the dials?
Somewhat. The dials, I've definitely kind of utilized the idea that there being sort of a boundary and kind of feeling a felt sense of that.
Right.
And at times I'll try the dials. I find that at times when there's a lot of stress, that's just not. But yeah, that does work at times when I use it. But definitely kind of.
Well, the boundary's the basic thing.
Using the idea of kind of a boundary, and I think that really helped get more of a sense of it, a real felt sense of it. And occasionally I'll use the dials, but when it's really when there's a lot of stress, I know that piece doesn't. It's not possible to have that piece happen. It's just like something happens that's too quick about it. But yeah, that I did use that. I did experiment with the dials and kind of opening and shutting the boundary field when I went to one of my regular trainings where there's a lot of people. And I found that helpful. I found it reduced some of the a little bit of social anxiety, if you will, or just kind of being in my head as much about how what was happening between me and the other person or the other person. So that really seemed to help, and definitely just being more aware of that boundary field helps a lot. I use that all the time, where I really get a sense of the boundary field.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so
anything
overall,
else?
I think that's.
We also applied that to food. Remember that?
Yeah, not so much working with that.
Not so much.
We did, and that was and that may, I don't know if that's a choice or not a choice, but I haven't. It hasn't been something I've used either intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or unconsciously with food. It's been more in either social situations or with just a lot of stress, like work. I'm working a couple jobs right now, so it's a lot of stress. So just kind of like in terms of demands of others, that's where I've been mainly using it, not so much with food. No.
All right. Yeah. So it's worked for you there.
I think so, yeah. I'm really, like I said, I have a much clearer kind of sense and awareness of the boundary field, and it definitely reduces some of the stress, particularly in work situations. Since that wasn't happening when I saw you last, I've got 2 jobs, so I'm working a lot of hours now. So that is definitely being applied there.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's very helpful.
Great. Oh, thanks very much.
Oh, okay.